Good afternoon, everyone. This is President Rich Atwater. Welcome to our teleconferencing Ring Central meeting, and thank you for joining us. If you wish to provide live public comment, please submit your request through the link to the online request form noted on the agenda. Please make sure you submit the form by 2:15 p.m. so that we can receive it, and we'll accept your written comments, and all written comments should be emailed to Ms. Claudia Rodriguez before the conclusion of the meeting. They will be included in the record of this meeting today. And with that, I'll turn over to Claudia to do the roll call of the board.
Claudia, we can't hear you. Nope. Not at all. Nope.
Richard, you should do the roll call then.
All right, I'll go ahead and do the roll call. I'll first start off with myself. I am present, and then I'll go to Director Sarah. Director Sarah, you're muted.
Oh yeah, I'm. You muted yourself. I'm here.
Director Tony Esperanza.
Oh, yeah.
And Director Steve Boy.
Present.
Great. We're all accounted for. Next, if you'd like, we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to agenda item 4, public comment. And I'll ask, now that we have item 4, opportunity for the public to make public comments. Claudia Rodriguez, do you have any speakers?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I don't know what was happening. So at this time, President Atwater, we have not received any public comment requests.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is approval of the minutes. And we have 2 minutes. One, the regular board meeting on October 15th, and then the special board meeting on October 26th.
I move we approve the 15th.
Second.
Do you want to do a separate vote, or you want to move and approve both the minutes of the 15th and this 26th?
I think we should do it separately.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Claudia, please call the roll of the board.
All right, Director Atwater,
Yes?
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Stamara,
Yes.
Director Blois.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you. Now for the approval of the special board meeting minutes of October 26th.
Motion.
Approve. I will either first or second, either one. Take your pick.
Don't like Tony Beaches, so we'll say,
Yeah, he did it. He did it. He was fast.
great. So Claudia, please call the roll.
Director Atwater,
Yes?
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Stamara,
Aye.
Director Blois.
Yes.
Excellent. Minutes have been approved.
And we move on to our agenda, and we'll move on to the consent calendar, which we have none, agenda item 6. And then we move on to agenda item 7, the discussion items. The first one is 7A, the DCA fiscal year 2021 budget amendment. And I'll turn that over to the executive director to make a presentation on that.
Thank you, President Atwater. You have in front of you a memo that is a follow-up to the presentation that I did at the last board meeting, reducing our annual budget for this current fiscal year from the previously approved value of 34 million to the proposed budget of 27 million. Once approved by this board, we will take the steps to modify the budget in our reporting and modify our contracts accordingly. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Any questions from the board? Do we
Yes,
have any?
I just wanted to say that, you know, it's quite a job kind of paring this down, and I commend you.
Thank you.
I think we all appreciate the efforts made into, trimming the budget. Now just double check with Claudia. Do we have anybody who wants to make public comments on the budget amendment?
President Atwater, we have not received any public comment requests on this item.
If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget amendment.
I move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
All right. Director Atwater.
Aye.
Director Palmer.
Aye.
Director Stamera.
Aye.
Director Blois.
Aye.
All right. The motion passes.
Great. We'll move on to 7B, which is the November DCA monthly report.
All right, so you have in front of you the monthly report for works completed through October. This will be the last report with the original budgeted scope of services, and over the next month, we'll be modifying budgets and commitments and the schedule to reflect the budget changes that were approved today. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Absolutely. Any questions from the members of the board? Do we have any public comments request, Claudia?
We do not.
I know we discussed this last month, so I'm not surprised not having many questions. Well, thank you. We can move on then to 7C, DCA Leadership Spotlight. Phil Ryan, the Engineering Design Manager.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Phil. He's been with the DCA since we started. He is in charge of managing all of the engineering work that we're producing in support of Carrie and her team on the CEQA DWR side. Phil has done a lot of work with the SEC, delivering a lot of the presentations that we do to make our work transparent. So it's lovely to work with an engineer that is both talented and then technical, and also has a really nice public demeanor in our engagement. So with that, I want to introduce Phil Ryan to you.
Welcome, Phil.
Oh, you're muted, Phil.
Phil, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I turned on my camera and I thought that was enough, but I guess not. Anyway, thanks, Catherine, for that lead in, and appreciate the opportunity to speak before the board. So, Claudia, could we go to the first slide? So a little bit about my background and experience. As Catherine mentioned, I am the engineering design manager, and basically I'm originally a Midwesterner, and I got a bachelor's of agricultural engineering, which is a technical engineering degree. It's kind of an obscure version. It's kind of a civil engineering branch from the University of Minnesota in 1981. They called it soil and water. I really kind of became sort of an irrigation engineer. And then I went out for grad school to Oregon State University, where I focused on water resources and energy management, and I got my MS there in 1984. I'm currently a registered professional engineer in California and Nevada. I've kind of worked all over the world, which I'll mention in a few minutes. I have really only worked for one company my entire career, even though it's kind of varied a little bit. I started with CH2M Hill in Redding, California in 1984, and we were ultimately acquired by Jacobs, so I've been there the whole time. I was selected as a global technology leader for Conveyance design, which is all things pipes, pumps, canals, tunnels to some extent, in 2006, and held that position up until 2019 when I stepped down to take this position. This is a full-time position, and that position would have been a conflict in my available time. I have a little over 37 years because I worked a little bit while I was a grad student in experience. I've always been based in California and Nevada. I spent 8 years on the SNWA program in Las Vegas for a while, but other than that, I've been focused in Northern California. I have a lot of national, mostly national, but some international experience in a lot of the portions of this project: screened intakes, pipelines, pumping plants, and really all phases: planning, design, construction, operations. I've been involved in all of it. 4 years on site in with the Southern Nevada Water Authority. I did all the operations training for the Freeport intake down the road from our project, so a lot of experience there. I do have quite a bit of experience even with Delta Conveyance. I was the project manager for a fast track delivery of one of the CERs back in 2012 when we first changed over to focus on intakes, pumping, and tunnel, the full complete tunnel project. And before that, even, I had helped DWR work with some of the levee issues back in 2010. So I've been kind of around the program for quite a while. Sounds like somebody needs to go on mute. Anyway, I'm currently the engineering design manager and was originally the intakes lead for the DCA. I was part of the original team. I've since that time picked up some of the South Delta Conveyance facilities. So I'm kind of wearing several hats here, doing the design management, and the intakes is a bigger part of the work than South Delta Conveyance facilities leading that. So that's kind of who I am, where I came from. Next one, please. So I think I'm going to give you a little smattering of some of my project experience, but one of the takeaways I'd like to is I think it's important for an engineering design manager to have a well-rounded, multidiscipline take on engineering technology, and also the experience from detailed delivery to project management, so I can have a good feel for the administrative and management aspects of it, and also a really diverse expertise in a lot of the various pieces and parts of the project. So I picked out 6 projects here. Most of them are within the last 10-ish years or so that I was working on them, to help you get a feel for where my experience lies. The one that's kind of the most directly applicable is that I was the project manager for the Freeport Regional Water Project intake facilities. I was also the project manager before that to help them in the overall planning phase. But then when they broke it up into an intake in the pipeline, we at CH2M did the intake facilities, and I continued on as the project manager there. One of the key things there is it's basically the same screen technologies we're looking at for Delta Conveyance, and it's built in.
I apologize for interrupting you. President Atwater, we seem to be having some technical issues on the Ring Central side. I was wondering if it'd be possible for us to take a 10-minute recess just to try to figure that out on the staff side. Apologies, but I want to make sure members of the public are able to call in.
So again, I gave you a little bit of my background and experience. So here's some of my more significant projects that I've selected over roughly the last 10 years. And as I mentioned earlier, and for those of repeating for those of you who weren't able to hear, I think it's important for an engineering design manager. Well, maybe I should start with that for those who weren't here before. I'm Phil Ryan. I'm the engineering design manager for the DCA, and we're about halfway through my little leadership spotlight presentation. So these are some of the significant projects I've worked on, and I think it's important that engineering design manager be well-rounded in many disciplines and in many aspects of project delivery. So these show projects that are similar to those required for Delta Conveyance in the various technologies, and they have a breadth of experience from project manager to senior technical consultant, design manager, that kind of thing. I consider myself a very technical, hands-on guy. I do understand a lot of the various disciplines that are involved in these projects. So one that's the most directly comparable would be the Freeport Regional Water Authority intake facilities, where I was the project manager, both the planning and the design phase. It's very similar. It's a lot smaller, obviously, than Delta Conveyance intakes, but it's very similar in the type of configuration that would be used. And it's built in a core regulated levee and uses a similar screen technology. And then similarly, the Natomas Mutual Water Company Sankey diversion, that's not in the Delta like Freeport. It's a little further upstream near Knight's Landing on the Sacramento River. Again, it's located on a core regulated levee protecting the Natomas area. It's not in the levee like Freeport is, but it goes through it. It penetrates the levee with the pipes. And again, it's a fairly good size vertical plate fish screen that's very similar to those proposed. I was also the project manager for 1100 CFS pumping plant, which is the primary, it's sort of the heart for the new Echo Water program over at Sac Regional. Their current $2 billion program to go to tertiary treatment and advanced treatment for nutrient removal. So this is the pumping plant that feeds that whole scenario there. Part of it, like I mentioned, it's multidisciplinary. It includes massive structural things. There's a big channel for redirecting the flow down there, and even includes such things that are as obscure as that biofilter, which is that sort of gray colored square you see there for odor control with advanced media. And there's extensive hydraulic and other operational diversions and controls associated with that. A project I spent a long time on, about 10 years of my life, and continued to work on in various aspects right up until a few years ago, was the Southern Nevada Water Authority project. My main project there was the raw water pumping system, amongst other things, but that had 3 pumping stations from 600, I should say 1100 CFS. There's a 0 missing there. I was the design manager for the largest underwater pressure pipe in the world. It's a 12-foot diameter, 300 PSI pipeline that was constructed under a bay in Lake Mead. It's interesting, today if you went out there, you could do a cut cover on it because the lake's so low, but at the time it was in 80 feet of water. Yep. And that also included over 5 miles of 108-inch pipe and 2 tunnels along it. I've had some involvement in some of their more recent work involving the new tunnel under the lake and some of their new aqueducts. For the Tarrant Regional Water District, that's in essentially the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, I was the design manager for 3 lake intakes and pumping plants. One of the things that's the most interesting about this is we've been proposing to look at cylindrical T-screens for the Delta Conveyance project. And this project does have very large cylindrical T fish screens on 2 of these new intakes. This one is also interesting, you know, being built, essentially you can see in the picture there, essentially in the middle of a lake. There's an extensive geotechnical program and extensive groundwater management associated with that project. And then another one I've been working the last few years. I'm still their senior technical consultant. It's a pretty low, you know, a few hours a month right now for the Great Lakes Water Authority, which is the main water wholesaler to all of the Detroit area. They serve Flint. Now that the Flint crisis, they've gone back to Detroit water, but it's all Great Lakes Water Authority. And we're relocating 2 miles of their 96-inch potable water line that goes through a Superfund site. So this involves a whole lot of planning of how to do a really reliable, bring this pipeline that was built in the 60s up into the, you know, current industry standards and make it reliable, and so that they can fix it. It's really old pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe, and they really had no way to fix it. And our new project will give them the ability to go back in and fix that. So again, this is a summary just showing how I've had various roles in, you know, a whole bunch of different technologies with the screens and intakes, pumping plants, structural geotechnical applications. There's all sorts of controls and other, you know, aspects of the work, training, construction, you know, planning and design. Okay, next one, please. So moving on, you know, what do I do now for you guys? I'm currently the engineering design manager, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm also kind of double hatting as the intakes facility lead and the South Delta Conveyance facility lead. So in that role, I provide the technical management for the DCA EDM team. So I am really surrounded by a great group of people. We got some very knowledgeable and experienced staff that help me. So nothing I say here is done just by me by any means. I couldn't do it without the rest of the team, but I kind of provide the technical leadership for these guys to help them all steer the ship. You know, it's kind of it's a big project, so it's kind of a battleship. You got to be thinking about how you steer it. You know, you can't turn on a dime, so we have to be watching out for that, and we have to maintain consistency between all the different work that's going on. You know, I foster and participate in the QA/QC process, and then help determine the schedules for everybody to make sure when they need to get things done, and staffing, and not just for our deliverables, but for our participation in, you know, SEC meetings and other types of support. I participate in the leadership meetings and the workshops that provides support to the entire DCA, DCO team. That, you know, includes all the DWR folks that work on the job with us, and the to some extent the PWAs that also participate with us. I have a key role in the SEC. I'm one of the couple of us who do the lion's share of the technical presentations, pretty much from the beginning with the SEC, in providing our engineering to the public. You know, sometimes we're probably a little bit over technical with them, but trying to bring it down to a level for public consumption. And then I obviously support our executive director with not just with with external technical communications. We've met with Congressman Garamendi. We meet with some of the, you know, community people that aren't part of the SEC and other aspects like that. And plus we support Catherine with other things that she needs. So next one. Claudia. Okay, thanks. So a couple of the things I've been able to accomplish since we've been here. I've been the lead for the delivery of the draft engineering report for the Central and Eastern corridors. And I think it's important to recognize that's over 50 TMs. You should see it. It's a stack of paper, you know, several thousand pages long, over 300 drawings. And along with leading that delivery, I also did the intake. It led the intake in South Delta Conveyance facilities, portions of that. So you're getting a lot of bang for the buck, at least in my time on that. And I'm currently leading the delivery of the draft drawings, the environmental, the technical parts of the environmental information templates, and the development of the initial GIS footprints for the Bethany Reservoir alternative. We've done this pretty fast. We're delivering it to DCO tomorrow. So I like to say that it's done. It's not quite done, but it will be tomorrow. We are submitting. So, you know, and then I've really helped, I think, develop a lot of the innovative solutions that we have developed as a team, but have helped drive those to reduce the cost and the impacts of the project to help maximize our, you know, potential for success as the project moves forward. And one of the things I really strive to do is to provide a certain amount of consistency across DCA's work. So I try and read most of the TMs and look at all the drawings that everybody prepares to make sure that, you know, they're all saying the same things and conveying the same concepts. And then obviously I've done a lot of support to the key public outreach efforts. So with that, that's kind of me in a nutshell, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful background in detailed work in the past, Phil. I've run across you over the years a variety of times, particularly when you were at Siege-2M Hill before Jacobs, but I'm really proud of the work you've done for the DCA on this. Do we have any questions from the board first?
So I just wanted to echo your thoughts.
Steve, we're having a little hard time hearing you.
I just wanted to echo your thoughts, Rich. I'm very, very impressed with Phil's resume and his past work and his current work. And I'll encourage you to continue doing so. It looks good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay,
We have any-
I have
Go
something to
ahead,
say.
Sarah.
Well, of course, the only real contact I've had with you, Phil, has been through being part of the SEC. But you have got the most wonderful kind of down to earth while having this brilliant mind and ability to go through and explain things on levels that the rest of us can understand. And I just wanted to hold this up because you have been very, very instrumental in doing this. All the SEC members get this wonderful map book so we can fully understand. That gets updated all the time, and it's made available to SEC members and their constituents, and it's been, you know, put in electronic formats and hard copy formats, and that's been so instrumental in helping, you know, promote the project and help people understand, be able to give input as well. So thank you so much to you and your team.
Thank you. Pleasure to participate.
Other questions from the board? If not, I'll ask Claudia, is there anybody from the public who would like to have any questions about his presentation?
Director Atwater, we have not received any public comment requests.
Well, then again, I want to repeat myself and just say thank you, Phil, we really appreciate you being part of our team.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now, is our legal counsel, Joshua Nelson, suggested that we need to go back and reapprove our action items, which is just approval of the minutes, 5A and 5B, October 15th and October 26th, which was a special board meeting. We can do that and get those reapproved. Looking for a motion from the board.
Okay, move that we reapprove October 15th and the 26th.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second.
Excellent.
Ask Claudia to call the roll.
All right. So just confirming that we are calling the roll for both the 15th and the 26th.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Director Atwater. Rich.
I said yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Excuse
Director
me.
Palmer.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Director Samara.
Aye.
Director Blois.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Meeting minutes approved.
And the only other action item we approved is 7A, which is the amendment to the DCA fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, the reduction of approximately $7 million. So we need a motion and a second to reapprove that.
I second it again.
Okay. Did you get that, Claudia?
Yep. Whenever you're ready, Rich.
Well, okay. We have a motion and a second to approve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call the roll.
All right. Director Atwater. Director Palmer.
Yes.
Director Estremera.
Aye.
And Director Blois.
Yes.
Excellent. The motion has passed.
Thank you.
think we're up to date now. Oh,
There
except
are,
maybe calling for public comment on any of those things. If we
yes,
do.
we've done that in the past during this meeting, but we'll go ahead and ask if there's any public comments on any of the items, agenda item 7.
Not at this time.
Okay, 7D is the next item, which is Stakeholder Engagement Committee update. Do we have a presentation today? I don't think we do.
Hi, everybody. I will go briefly through the stakeholder engagement work. And we were actually supposed to have somebody do the report out from the SEC, but they were, due to work reasons, not able to attend and canceled last minute. So apologies for that. But we had our stakeholder engagement committee meeting on November 5th. Our next one will be December 9th. And the last meeting actually was, I thought, really fruitful in terms of feedback that we got. I think what we realized was it's much more effective to kind of put our information out in sort of smaller bursts and then get feedback and be able to discuss. As you know, you just heard from Phil, he's responsible for a lot of the material presentation, and we've had varying degrees, and this is a really tough balance for us. We've had some people say your materials is too dense and too technical. At the same time, there are folks, engineers, environmentalists on the SEC who ask really pointed technical questions and who want that level of detail. So it's difficult to try to balance the two. You know, what we try to do is obviously always be open to say if you need further extrapolation or want to take some time apart from the SEC to go through some of the materials, we're open to it. But I actually think one of the things that we are learning is it's probably better to make the materials less dense, but even more importantly, to not kind of put it out as like a 45-minute presentation, but to break it up and give time for feedback. Because I thought the feedback at our last SEC meeting was some of the most productive that we've had to date. It was really great. I don't know if you would agree, Director Palmer. You're nodding your head.
I'm saying yes, it was quite good because people had a chance to. I mean, it took a really long time, but yes, it was good because people got a chance to go on each of their interests and each of the things that they were concerned with, which was
That's exactly great. That's exactly right. We went through, you can see on the meeting materials, some of the issues that we went through. We continued discussion of the logistics of the Bethany alternative and discussed a little bit about the future of the SEC going into next year and what that would mean, especially with the Bethany alternative and whatnot, and the potential to have the SEC be part of a discussion of a community benefits framework, geotech studies, and potential design changes. There's a good reason to continue on till next year, but that was something that we wanted to also discuss with the SEC. I wanted to also bring up the fact you got a few letters attached as part of our materials, including ones that came from Karen Mann, who's one of our SEC members. And they're similar, one from Delta Counties Coalition and one from the Whaleys. And some of the themes are very similar. It's almost like they're being written by the same person. And I think one of the things that we are really thinking about, and I just want to bring it up with response to both the letter we received and the response that we gave, is I think that there has been mounting frustration from different groups about the narrow parameters of the SEC, which is frankly the parameters of the DCA, which is that we owe DWR a certain amount of information around technical and design work in support of the EIR and the CEQA process. And we put the SEC together and we were very clear from the get-go that this was a way of getting sort of the fingerprints of Delta stakeholders on these materials before we handed them over to Carrie and her team. And it's not something that was done in the past. It's obviously in response to the past for a need for greater engagement. And this was the DCA's way of responding to what we heard. And I don't mean to sort of say it's a product of our success. I think that to some extent, because we have a monthly meeting, because it's a regular presence, people want to speak on other topics. And you've met a lot of our team. We've done the presentations. We are mostly just a team of engineers who do the work that we have been assigned to do. And folks want to speak about other alternatives. They want to speak about other issues with Delta. And so I just want to make clear our response. both to point out the sense of frustration of some of the SEC members, but also to kind of say, you know, I'm empathetic to what they're saying, but the request to change the mandate of the SEC, and which also means, frankly, changing the mandate of the DCA, is just not something that we can. It's not something that we can do. So I want to just give you a little bit of that background, because I think you got those letters a little bit later, and you got our that just went out this morning. But just wanted to make sure you're aware of that background. And yeah, and you know, we'll continue to discuss it with the SEC, but you know, we appreciate the forum. We're deeply appreciative of all the work, and we've spent a lot of time showing folks how the feedback has, you know, has affected our work and has resulted in changes in our plans and sightings and whatnot. But I gather that for some folks, it's not enough. I just don't think that we are the forum that can address whatever it is that folks want to see and do. And that is it.
Ashley, for giving us that background and talking about the processes with the SEC and some of the frustrations. Any questions from any of the board members? Hearing none. Any comments from the public?
We have not received any public comment requests for this item, Director Atwater.
And the next item, 7E, stakeholder engagement report out. Nancy, do we have anything else? It's kind of redundant.
No, as I said, I'm sorry that we got a last minute cancellation, and hopefully somebody will volunteer for the next month's board report.
Absolutely. Thank you again for all that background of how the SEC is going, and I appreciate the opportunity to continue to watch and monitor the dialogue going on in the Delta. Well, let's move on to agenda item 8, staff reports and any announcements. First is 8A, and ask Josh if he has an update.
Thanks, President Atwater. So my written reports in your packet up on the screen. You know, the only thing I would highlight is, you know, due to the recent surge in COVID-19, Sacramento County is like most of the state back in purple or widespread, which is substantially restricting all activities. It doesn't directly affect DCA operations, of course, but we'll keep continuing to make sure we remain in compliance with the state and county health orders. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, why don't we go to 7B and Catano's treasury report. Catano, are you there?
Oh, never mind. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
I can
Oh,
see you
thank
too. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, my internet is just a pit, but I have headphones now. So we began the October month with a little over $1.3 million, and that's usually high for us. But by the end of October, we had a little less than $700,000 in the fund. Within the month, however, we did receive additional dollars and made some payments. And as of November 10th, we had about a little over $2.5 million in the fund. As you know, we actually keep around $800K in the fund. So that money helps pay until we get specific dollars from payables and then make payables from the DCO. We did attach all their supporting documentation for your review, and you can ask any questions you might have. Additionally, I just want to report that we were going to bring our financials this month, but we skipped to next month to give us an opportunity to have better information and also have the auditors come and present. So they will be here next month to present the financials. And there were a couple of findings, but I will leave that for next month for discussion. So that's the report. Happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Katana. Any questions from the board? If not, why don't we move on to the Environment Manager's report from DWR, Carrie Buckman.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So a couple of updates on the environmental side. We're continuing work on the CEQA documentation with the environmental impact report. And our main activities right now, we're working on describing the existing conditions and identifying the methods that we're going to use to analyze impacts associated with the different alternatives. Also, on the federal side, the Army Corps of Engineers published their notice of intent for an environmental impact statement in August, and their scoping period closed on October 20th. They got about 90 comment letters and emails that they're processing now to start preparation of the EIS. In other activities, we're working on some soil explorations along with the DCA. So earlier this year in July, we published an initial study and mitigated negative declaration, and we are proceeding with some activities under that documentation. So we did some geophysical surveys and soil borings on Bolden Island, and we're completing some geotechnical activities on public rights of way in some other areas, and working to obtain a temporary entry for private property. One of the things that we talked about in previous meetings, we have been working on an environmental justice survey. We released that survey at the beginning of October. We've been continuing to work to publicize the survey, and we have extended it so that it will be open until December 11th. And then we should have information on the results around the end of the year. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we are working on developing a conceptual approach to form a community benefits program. And so we really want to get community involvement in this program. And so we will be talking about this at the DCA Stakeholder Engagement Committee in December. And the idea is to really work collaboratively with the community as part of the development of this effort. And I think that's it for today. If there are any questions. President Atwater, I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll ask if any members of the board have any questions. Seeing none. Again, thank you, and we'll look forward to hearing from you next month.
Thanks.
8D is just verbal reports. I'll just ask Catherine, and do we have any other verbal reports to report out on?
I do.
Director Sarah.
Yes. I had some good news. Zone 7 last night at our board meeting, we authorized our general manager to inform DWR that we desired to participate in the Delta Conveyance project at a 2.2 participation level of Zone 7's Table A amount. And then we have, we're going in it for 2 years at this point, and over a 2-year period, we have authorized $2.8 million and also authorized our general manager to execute the amended joint powers agreement and remain a member of the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority. Ta-da!
Very much for that. Good news. Any other board members have anything to report out? If not, we'll move on to agenda item 9. Future agenda items.
I apologize for interrupting. Before we jump to agenda item 9, we actually did just receive a request for general public comment. And while it's past the 2:15 deadline, given the technical difficulties, staff would request that the board listen to that comment.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead.
Hi, this is OSHA Meserve. And I finally did get into the platform. Thanks for helping me out. I just wanted to provide a brief comment on the stakeholder engagement item, really. On behalf of, I work with local agencies of the North Delta and a lot of other stakeholders in the Delta on tunnel related issues. And, I think it's reasonable for a lot of different people to come to the same conclusion about the frustration with the scope of the stakeholder group and the scope of the DCA. I think what's added to that frustration really is that when we heard in July that even with respect to DWR's CEQA process, there wouldn't be any alternatives that would look at through Delta corridors or other intake locations besides on top of the Delta legacy communities. So I know that DCA is, separate from DWR in this structure, But I think, that has been an exacerbating condition that the CEQA process wasn't going to look at those alternatives. Now, thinking back to, the last round of this project, there was, for instance, alternative 9, which was a Delta Corridors alternative. We had wanted a look at some alternative intake locations that would get out of the Delta communities and also be more toward high flow locations. That would be for when we really do have those high flows of water that would be fresh, looking at the West Delta. So just want to kind of flesh out the reasons why. I think the other thing that is concerning as a stakeholder is, when reports back to the individual districts come in and, there's a lot of glowing comments about how great the stakeholder group is going. I just think, that sometimes can be disconcerting for me and others to hear because we have been so frustrated with the limited scope. So I just think it's really important, and I think that some attention has been paid to this, and I would suggest it continue to really be clear about what the scope of the stakeholders' work is, and so that it does not get overstated in other venues. And then just one last thing I wanted to mention is I did listen into and participate in the Santa Clara meeting, considering the an additional funding of the planning process. And it wasn't the board members that are here today from Santa Clara, but some other board members were, I think, really rude to the community in terms of saying disparaging things about Sierra Club, which I don't represent Sierra Club, but I thought was insulting and inappropriate and disrespectful, and I don't think in line with what anyone would want to put forth. In addition, it seemed like there was a confusion at the board level back at Santa Clara about kind of the types of people and interests that have concerns about the tunnels and kind of the broadness of that. There was a statement made that only environmental groups are concerned, and I don't think that's true at all. I think you all here know, and the stakeholder group people know, that it's a wide variety of concerns. So the more that you guys, and I'll wrap it up, sorry, can, make sure that back at the board level, there's more communication about what's going on out here in Sacramento, I think that would be helpful because there appear to be some confusion.
Well, thank you, OSHA. We appreciate your comments, and we'll include them in the record, and as we go forward, we'll try to address them as best we can. Thank you very much. Any other verbal reports from the board? Anything? Then let's move on to agenda item 9. Any requests for future agenda items? Well, I hope you all stay safe. Have a great Thanksgiving, but don't have any big parties, that's for sure. And we'll see you in December. We are adjourned.